5 days before the robbery, Victor Hale received a handwritten note. It named all 4 men. Their route into the house. The exact safe they planned to crack. Even the blind spot behind the greenhouse they intended to use for entry. Victor Hale never called the police. That was the first thing the robbers got wrong. Because while they spent the next 5 days planning the perfect heist, Victor Hale spent those same 5 days preparing a trap. And by the time the 4 men finally stepped inside his mansion, he was already waiting for them. Every city has a shadow side. Not the kind tourists hear about. Not the kind that flashes across the evening news. This shadow is quieter than that. Older. It lives in parking garages with dead fluorescent lights. In diners where nobody asks questions. In the silence between men who stopped trusting the world a long time ago. Tonight, the city of Caldwell is pretending nothing unusual is happening. Rain slides across black pavement. Streetlights hum over empty intersections. And somewhere beyond the rail yards. 4 men are about to walk into the worst mistake of their lives. Their names are Deke, Sal, Mouse, and Ricky. And before this night is over, every one of them will realize they were never robbing Victor Hale. They were being studied by him. The apartment smelled like old food and anxiety. Water stains spread across the ceiling like maps of forgotten countries. A bare bulb swung slowly overhead. Deke stood over the table studying blueprints. 41 years old. Lean. Controlled. The kind of man who had survived this long by never making the same mistake twice. Hale leaves every other Thursday, he said. House goes skeleton crew. 1 guard at the south gate. Motion sensors cover the east lawn and front approach. West side behind the greenhouse is blind. Sal leaned backward in a chair, thick arms folded across his chest. What about the safe? 3rd floor study, Mouse answered without looking up from the laptop. Sievert 990. I can crack it in under 8 minutes. Mouse looked forgettable on purpose. Average face. Average height. Neutral voice. A man who built his entire life around not being remembered. And then there was Ricky. 23 years old. Young enough to still believe fear was something you could hide. Are we sure nobody knows? He asked quietly. Deke looked at him calmly. Nobody knows. But somebody did. And that somebody was already 3 moves ahead. Victor Hale sat alone inside his study with a glass of bourbon beside him. 67 years old. Former military. Founder of one of the largest private cybersecurity firms on the East Coast. The kind of man who understood one simple truth. People are predictable when they think they're in control. The handwritten note sat unfolded on his desk. 4 men. Thursday night. Greenhouse entry. 3rd floor safe. Perfectly accurate. Victor Hale had read the note twice 5 days earlier. Then calmly finished breakfast. No panic. No police. No security consultants. Just preparation. Because Victor Hale understood something the robbers did not. Fear makes people reactive. Patience makes them dangerous. And Victor Hale had become very dangerous. Over the next 3 days, the 4 men prepared for the robbery. But every step they took only pushed them deeper into Victor Hale's plan. Deke watched the estate from the public road through binoculars. Guard rotation, every 12 minutes. Predictable. Too predictable. But Deke didn't realize that yet. Mouse buried himself in archived security permits at the library. Cross-referencing contractor filings against the safe manufacturer. Outdated firmware. Old architecture. Weak points. Easy. At least. That's what Victor Hale wanted him to think. Sal bought supplies from 3 different hardware stores. Cash only. Different jackets. different routes home. Professional habits. And Ricky stood at a pay phone talking to his girlfriend. Telling her he'd be home by the weekend. Telling her everything was fine. His hands shook the entire conversation. Not visibly. Inside. Where fear actually lives. Meanwhile, Victor Hale prepared his house. Quietly. Patiently. Like a man setting a table for guests he already expected to arrive. And then Thursday night finally came. Cold rain. Low clouds. A city folding inward on itself. At exactly 8:47, Victor Hale's silver BMW rolled down the driveway. Deke watched through binoculars from the tree line. The guard lifted a hand toward the car. No response. Exactly as expected. 10 minutes later, the guard booth lights went dark. Mouse's contact had slipped something into the man's dinner earlier that evening. Nothing fatal. Just enough to guarantee sleep. At 9:15, the four men moved. Black clothing. No lights. No talking. The greenhouse emerged from the darkness like a skeleton made of glass. Mouse reached the service entrance. 15 seconds later, the alarm system died. Clean, he whispered. That should have worried him. Because real security systems rarely fail that easily. But confidence has a way of blinding smart people. And Victor Hale was counting on that. Sal opened the service door. Warm air drifted out from inside the mansion. Deke looked once toward the dark lawn behind them. One last chance to walk away. Then they stepped inside. And the house swallowed them whole. The mansion was silent. Not empty. Silent. There's a difference. Their pen lights slid across marble floors and expensive paintings. Portraits watched them climb the staircase toward the third floor. Victor Hale appeared 3 separate times on the walls. Young. Middle-aged. Older. The mansion speaking through oil paint. This house belongs to Victor Hale. And Victor Hale does not lose control inside it. At the third floor study door, Deke raised one hand. Everyone stopped moving. Nothing. No sound. No movement. Deke opened the door. The study glowed faintly with firelight. Mouse moved straight toward the hidden safe. Acoustic kit out. Headphones on. Working. Deke searched the desk. Sal guarded the hallway. Ricky stood near the window overlooking the estate grounds below. Everything outside looked dead. Still. But then. Movement. Near the eastern tree line. A shape moving differently than the others. Too deliberate. Deke. Not now. I think somebody's out there. I said not now. That was the second mistake. Because Ricky was right. Mouse turned the dial carefully, listening to the mechanism speak through tiny clicks. For minutes, he whispered. Sal heard something in the hallway. Or thought he did. He looked. Nothing there. And instead of saying something, he stayed quiet. That was the third mistake. The safe clicked open. Inside, cash. Jewelry. Documents. Deke reached inside. And suddenly the lights came on. Not warm lights. Not normal lights. Cold white illumination embedded into the walls themselves. Clean. Even. Merciless. All four men froze instantly. Deke's hand still inside the safe. Mouse staring upward. Ricky backing against the window. Nobody spoke. Because in 1 second, the entire house had changed. Before, it felt abandoned. Now it felt awake. And then they realized something worse. The lights weren't for them. They were for whoever had been watching. We go, Deke said immediately. South corridor. Move. Sal stepped into the hallway first. Mouse grabbed the duffel bag. Then stopped. At the far end of the corridor, a door stood open. A door that wasn't on the floor plans. Darkness beyond it. And from somewhere inside that darkness, a sound. Small. Mechanical. The sound of something being prepared. Ricky made a terrified noise in the back of his throat. Move. Deke snapped. The 4 men rushed down the corridor. Then Mouse saw the laptop. Open on a side table. 8 camera feeds. Every hallway. Every room. The greenhouse. The utility road. Their car. And on one screen, the study. All 4 of them clearly visible from 8 minutes earlier. Mouse stopped cold. He knew. Victor Hale had known the entire time. Not suspected. Known. The easy alarm bypass. The untouched blind spot. The effortless entry. It wasn't weak security. It was permission. They had been allowed inside. And if you're realizing this was never really a robbery, you're starting to understand Victor Hale. Mouse. Deke grabbed his arm. He knows we're here, Mouse said calmly. The calmness frightened everyone more than panic would have. He knew before we entered. I know, Deke answered. The car is on the feed, Mouse whispered. He has the plate. Then, from downstairs, a door closed. Slowly. Deliberately. Not hiding. Not rushing. A man exactly where he intended to be. Victor Hale had never left the house. The BMW leaving the driveway had been theater. A decoy. Victor Hale had spent the entire night inside the mansion. Waiting. And now the trap was closing. The 4 men hit the staircase fast. Kitchen corridor ahead. Service exit 30 feet away. Sal grabbed the handle. Locked. A second deadbolt had been added from inside the house while they worked upstairs. Sal slammed his shoulder into the door. Nothing. East exit, Deke ordered. They ran through the kitchen. Through the pantry. Into the eastern corridor. Locked again. Steel shutters sealed the windows. Ricky shoved against them uselessly. Stop, Deke said suddenly. Everyone froze. Then they heard his voice. Calm. Measured. Close. There are 6 exits in this house, Victor Hale said. I've secured 5. Nobody moved. I left one open, he continued. That means you still have a choice. The silence became unbearable. Deke finally answered. What do you want? I want you to understand something, Hale said. I have your faces. Your vehicle. 47 minutes of footage already uploaded to a private server. A pause. I am not calling the police tonight. That hit harder than a threat. Because now they understood. Victor Hale wasn't afraid of them. Not even slightly. What happens next, Hale continued, depends entirely on whether you are intelligent enough to leave. For the first time that night, Deke understood the truth. This was never about money. Victor Hale had built this entire night to prove a point. The greenhouse door is open, Hale said. Use it. Sal looked at Deke. Trap. Deke already knew. Everything in this house was a trap. But one trap led outside. The 4 men moved back through the mansion. No talking. No hesitation. No looking back. They crossed the greenhouse. The wet lawn. The stone wall. Ricky first. Then Mouse. Then Sal. Deke climbed last. At the top of the wall, he paused for 1 second and looked back. The mansion stood fully illuminated now. Every window glowing against the cold November dark. And in one of the ground floor windows, Victor Hale stood watching them. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just watching. Like a teacher waiting for students to finally understand the lesson. Deke dropped from the wall. The car started. Nobody spoke during the drive back into the city. Ricky's hands had finally stopped shaking. Mouse stared straight ahead with the duffel bag in his lap. Sal drove exactly at the speed limit. And Deke sat silently thinking about one thing. The note. Someone had betrayed them. Someone knew the plan before it happened. Someone close. He would spend a long time thinking about that. But not tonight. Tonight there was only rain on the windshield, city lights ahead, and the understanding that they had willingly stepped into another man's game. Back at the mansion, Victor Hale poured himself a glass of bourbon. The first one he'd touched in 5 days. He sat behind his desk. And drank. By dawn, it was over. For men disappeared back into a city that would never know their names. One man remained inside a house built on patience. There are stories where fear wins. Where panic takes over. Where wealthy men hide behind locked doors and wait for police sirens. This was not one of those stories. Victor Hale understood something the others didn't. Preparation beats panic every time. And readiness is the only armor that never fails. At 7:42 in the morning, the final lamp in the study switched off. And the house on Ridgecrest Hill stood exactly as it always had. Quiet. Permanent. Entirely unimpressed by the night that had tried to take something from it. Some men survive because they're dangerous. Victor Hale survived because he was ready first. And somewhere out there tonight, someone else is already waiting. If you want more thriller stories where intelligence is the real weapon, stay close.